Okay, here's a quick example of how to merge multiple tables. You can see on these three sheets I have identical layouts of tables. The first thing you want to do is convert them to legitimate tables if they are not already. If you don't see the tab over here for design, then you're not a table when you have it selected. So click inside of it somewhere, hit Control T on your keyboard, or you can select Format as Table and select color and all that kind of stuff. I'll just take the default by hitting Control T. Make sure I select my table has headers because we have headers on there. And now it has created a table. You can see the table name here. We could call it a specific name if we want. I'll just go with the defaults because it doesn't matter. And then go to the other sheet, do the same thing. We'll convert it to a table as well. And then go to the third sheet and convert it to a table. Now I'll go back to the first sheet, and inside of this table, when it's highlighted somewhere, I will go to the Data tab. And what we're going to do is we're going to create a query, basically, that queries this table for its data. So I'm just going to simply select this Get and Transform Data from the Data ribbon, and I'm going to select From Table Range. And it's going to pop up with the PowerQuery editor. And it's come up with that PowerQuery editor. That's great. I'm not going to make any changes or manipulations. If I wanted to, I could. In fact, I will. I'll go ahead and do that. I'm going to come in here and I'm going to say right-click on this, and I'm going to say Change Type, and I'm going to make it a currency. And I'll say Replace Current Step. And for this one, I'm going to right-click and I'm going to say Change Type, and I'm going to tell it it's a date, and replace the current step. And now that that's done, I'm going to go to, instead of clicking the upper button here, the default close and load, I'm going to click the close and load to option here. And I'm just going to select only create the connection, and then I hit OK. So basically what we've done is created a query that queries in the data from that table and transforms it to a currency and date value. I'm going to go to sheet 2, and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm just going to say From Table Range. And I'm going to right-click on this one and say Transform to a, excuse me, change type to currency, place. And then on this one, I'm going to say change type to date, say replace, and then I'm going to say close and load to, and I'm going to say only create the data connection. So basically, I've now created 2 queries, 3. Of course, you could do this, as many times as you need to. In this case, 3 times will be enough. And I'm going to go ahead and make that a currency. And then I'm going to go ahead and make this a date. And then I'm going to close and load to, only create the connection. So now I have these three queries. Now I'm going to create a new sheet where I want to combine all 3 of these tables into one. And then what I do is I come up here again, I still have to be in the Data tab. I just go to Get Data. And then down here I say Combine Queries. And I just want to append queries, or I could do a merge, but in this case the tables are all the same. So I'm just going to do an append. And I'm going to say 3 or more tables. I'm going to select all of them. Oops. I'm going to add them all, and I'm going to hit OK. And it's going to bring up the PowerQuery editor again. And we shouldn't have to change any content this time. And then I'm going to say close and load to. And this time I'm going to say to an existing worksheet, I'm going to select A1 there, and I'm going to hit OK. And this will run a query to combine those other 3. And then now, of course, we can create a pivot off of this. So if I go in here to insert a pivot table, and I'm going to say, put it over here, and just hit OK. Now I can, filter by date or do rows by date, and I'll do a sum of the amount and expand out these tables or whatever we want to do with a pivot table. Any kind of query you want. You could also do a column header by person, or however you wanted to do your summaries here. If you're used to working with pivot tables, I'm sure you can handle that piece of it. The one thing I will mention is if you needed to identify which table this came from, what you would do is when you are creating your different queries, and we can actually go in and add that. If I right-click on this table here and hit Edit, we can actually come in here and just go in here and say add a column. Say just create a custom column. And this is pretty simple formula here. We could call this source table, and call this quote, double quote for a string. Call this the the master project, whatever value you wanted to identify rows in this table from. And then hit OK. It's going to stick this new column in here. And then you just say close and load. On table 3, same thing. We would come in here, add a column. And of course, you could do this when you originally set it up. You wouldn't have to do it later. And create a custom column. And I'm going to say source table equals Smith job. And hit OK. And then I'm going to hit close and load here. And then on the third one, again, I'll hit edit. And I will add a new custom column and give it the same name. If they're the same name, it'll merge them together easier. You can handle it without that, but I would definitely do it the same name. And we'll call this the waterfall project, whatever identifying value you want. And then hit close and load. Now, when we go and edit this third one, or the query that combines them, you'll actually see it's combined those automatically. You can just hit close and load. And over here, once we've done that, we can just go to data and say refresh all. And there we now have the source table. And if we go into our pivot and refresh that, we now have the source table value we could throw as a filter, for instance, or use it as a column header instead. So we'll throw that in here. And let's say we want to filter by name. So we can throw a filter on name. And now we can say all the, Skywalker values. And in here, it shows the waterfall project only has values that match to Skywalker. So anyway, that's how you can do it. You can merge them together pretty easily using PowerQuery. Any questions or anything like that, let me know. I'd be glad to help you out.